Congratulations. You are listening to Baconsale. Most people are so ungrateful to be listening to Baconsale. But not you. Not anymore.
Is it time to play a game?
I want to play a game.
Yeah. Are most people ungrateful to listen to our show?
Was that Jigsaw on purpose?
That was.
Okay. Well, I hope so.
I would hope so, too. Yeah.
No, I decided we're doing a Halloween theme thing. I wanted to throw in a Halloween themed intro. That's all.
Yeah, it works.
Thank you.
A little
scared.
creepy. Yeah, I was scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
There's someone else in the room with us.
What? This is awkward. Hey, guys, we're doing our first remote today.
Yay! Coming to you live. Well, not live, but coming to you from Dr. Matt's house.
right now.
It's live to us.
That's Dr. Matt.
Hey, Dr. Matt.
Kent, you do the intro here.
Okay.
I was going to say, you know him better than we do.
Some of you may know me as Kenny D, and because I was on a radio show for a couple of years.
What?
I know, weird,
That's how
right?
my kids know you.
Yeah, that's your kids?
Yeah.
I am so sorry.
Kenny D's coming over?
Wait, they listened?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You know it. They're big Kenny D fans.
Are you sure?
Millennials
have
love
Have they
Kenny
actually
D.
heard my movie reviews?
Yeah, probably.
He hates everything.
They consume a lot of media that I don't supervise, so I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Well, okay, I'll talk to them later.
So tell us about Dr. Matt and how
So,
he came to be on the podcast.
I was on the radio on Tuesdays and Fridays, and there was always on Wednesday
Yeah.
a very special guy that was on to. It was Wednesday or was
Yeah,
it Thursday?
No, I think it was on Wednesday.
Wednesday
Well,
in
it's fluctuated over the years.
Yeah.
I was there for a while.
providing a psychology segment.
Yeah.
On the radio, and so sometimes I'd be like, I really want to meet this guy, and it wasn't until I co-hosted a few times that I was able to actually meet you.
Right.
And
They let you co-host?
you didn't know this?
Well,
They must have been in trouble.
I was excited,
I
though.
may
I
have
had
blocked it
Kenny
out.
sign my chest on the first time. So
is
was
that
cool.
is that what that tattoo is?
Yeah, then I had it tattooed. I was going to save that for later.
I did not know about
Yeah.
this. But, so we are alumni of a canceled radio station, which is very, very
a
important.
brotherhood, a kinship.
Yes.
Of sorts.
Exactly. Us and like two psychics.
Right. And a few people that are in jail.
Yeah. And then also Matt has been on several podcasts, which I've been a part of, which has been really,
Fun.
really
Yeah,
great.
we worked together and had a good time.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Matt.
Well, other than all my media failures that we just went through, which is good. So I am Matt Woolley. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm a clinical professor at the University of Utah in the Department of Psychiatry.
Nice.
And at this point, everyone's tuned out. I threw psychology and psychiatry in there at the same time.
So would
And
we
now
call you a
we've changed the
psychologist or
channel.
a psychiatrist?
No, psychologist. I have a
Okay.
PhD, a non-medical doctoral degree in psychology. So,
you
So
can't
if someone
give us
yells,
drugs.
I was going to say, if someone yells, "Is there a doctor in the house?" during a medical emergency, you just kind of sit there.
I raise my hand and then I go operate. Because I've always wanted to.
there you go. Okay.
No, I would not. I just put my earbuds back in at that
Okay,
point.
there you go. As would I.
Yeah.
No first responders here.
I am CPR certified.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
no, psychologists are a little different. If my dad's listening, he'll maybe finally figure this out.
Don't worry, he won't listen to Baconsale.
You know he's a big fan. He's got the shirt.
We have shirts.
Yes, it just says, "I'm the listener."
Yeah.
Well, my dad has one. He's a little creepy. But if you go to medical school and you want to be an MD and do all the medical surgery and medicine and stuff, then you can specialize and become a heart surgeon and make lots of money, or a psychiatrist and be poor. So that's how that works in medicine. And then if you want to get a degree where you do psychology, which is more the behavior, the thinking, the research, that sort of science. So I do talk therapy. If you want to think of it that way, cognitive therapy.
On a variety of subjects, kind of whatever comes your way, or do
My
you have a specialty?
specialties are anxiety disorders and cognitive therapy for things like anxiety and depression. I also do a lot of neuropsych testing. So if any of you guys get a head injury tonight and you're medically stable, then
Was that a threat?
No,
No, I'm just,
guys, he did invite us over, and no one knows where we are.
you're in the mean streets of wherever I live.
Yeah.
And
Davis County.
Davis County, right? Yeah. And anyway, so that's what I do there. I teach. I do teach at the medical school. I'm in the department of psychiatry, which is a little different, but it's because psychiatrists and psychologists work together. They prescribe the medicine. I do the therapy or the testing of their head injuries, whatever the case may be. And we get along well. I do a private practice. I still am doing some media. I do the Fresh Living show on Channel 2 with Casey and
I
Debbie.
love their supermarkets.
Yeah, right. Of course. Yeah, my favorite are the food truck ones.
Oh, yeah.
And that's fun. I'm on 2 or 3 times a month, and that's a good time.
A specific time, or
Usually on Thursdays, and I think the show was moved to 3:30 in the afternoon. I've never really watched it because I'm at work.
Yeah.
But we run down, tape it in the morning, and it's a good time. It's fun. I usually just do really short segments there. And, so that's what I do. Tonight I was at my private practice in Salt Lake and working with people. And
then we barged into your house.
we did.
Yeah, now
And
we're here hanging
which
at
begs
my
the question:
table.
why did we barge into this poor man's house when we're doing a month full of Halloween themed shows?
That is a very good
I'm just
question.
glad we had the house decorated for Halloween. We have,
Yeah, it's
I
true.
noticed
we
that.
have the
Yeah.
creepy happy birthday sign hanging by a thread because my son's
The
birthday.
giant
was
fork
earlier
and
this
spoon,
week. Giant fork and spoon.
parakeet.
A parakeet.
Wait, are these Halloween decorations? What do you mean?
I thought the blood splatters were a little much, honestly. But
Well, those are normal.
But one thing I know about you, even above all the psychology stuff, is that you're a giant geek.
Totally. Yep.
So even though you are a doctor of several things at this point, you like to just geek out about stuff.
Yeah, we always have a good time, right?
Yeah.
Talking about movies, and I'm excited that you guys are here tonight, so that I don't have to sleep alone. No, so that
What is going on?
It's cold. It's fall.
I know, right? To talk about monsters, because that's actually Halloween's one of my favorite times. And I like to talk. So on some of the shows we've done in the past, it was kind of the psychology of, and then pick a movie, and we talk
Yeah.
about the characters. And Halloween is a great time to talk about kind of the psychology of what's going on. So we get to talk about monsters and other stuff while you're here tonight, fears and phobias. I love all that stuff.
Thank you for that segue.
that was great.
Because that's really it. This is a very weird month where I generally don't watch a lot of horror movies.
What?
And then, no, it's true. I watch one or two here and there if they come out, but I wait till October 1st. And much like you,
I thought your alarm clock was the movie Saw to wake you up in the morning.
it's Hostile.
Oh, okay.
It's a good way to start
My
off feeling
mistake.
paranoid and afraid every day, right?
Exactly. It's like you get up in the morning, you're like, well, can't be any worse than that guy.
Some guy's gotten split in half or something like that. But what is it? I mean, it's strange because a lot of these movies are not very good. There are
No.
some cult classics in there.
Very rarely do you find a good, like a cinematically good horror movie.
But why
Like
would
1
we?
in 100, probably.
Yeah, but we dedicate so much, an entire month to decorating around just fear and terror and
And you look at movie theaters, and they release horror movies, not good horror movies, in October. They'll still go to the top of the list, regardless of whether they're good or not, just because it's Halloween season.
Yeah. So why on earth would we like the threat of being injured or killed? Like, what's exciting about that?
And he means we as a people, not just us at
Not
the
just
table.
Just
yeah.
us and tonight.
He was winking and looking at you, Joel.
We.
That's a great question. Halloween is really popular, I think, for a lot of different reasons. When you're young, it's the fantasy aspect of it. You can be a superhero or a scary monster. You kind of feel empowered to dress up. You could be a princess.
Yeah.
You can be anything you want. And so I think there's that aspect. It's highly reinforcing because you get to go to people's houses and bang on the door and get candy and run around and kind of be mischievous without really being, it's kind of condoned.
Sure.
You think about it, it's a lot like a mouse in a maze, where they push the button, they get a treat, and it's the same thing.
Highly reinforced, right?
Push a button, you get candy. You're like, this is the best holiday ever.
I remember as a kid, I don't know about you guys, I loved kind of planning out what I was going to be and getting the costume and all that stuff. And sometimes when I was like Batman 3 years in a row, I had some Batman issues, but you could psychoanalyze Batman.
Yeah, you
Whoa,
can.
hey, take it easy. Take it easy.
There's nothing wrong with
that was actually the-
Dr. Chase Meridian that psychoanalyzed Batman.
No, stop it. That was actually one of the origins of this podcast. Actually, we had this conversation if whether Batman is an obsessive or not.
It is. That's
But-
true. Well, that was
That's
a while
another
ago.
show.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, and we will
Well,
need
should
your
come
help
back
on
and
that
talk
show.
about superheroes sometime, just because they are modern day archetypes, and an archetype is kind of that basic character image that reflects aspects of who we are. And I think in a lot of ways, monsters, or at least the original horror monsters of like the Universal Pictures and things, each represents kind of different aspects of archetypal primal needs and drives. So,
But what about like a 7-year-old in their elementary school parade wearing a hockey mask and a giant
that's a
fake
little
machete?
different.
What does that mean?
well, I mean, a lot of it has to do with media and marketing.
Okay.
What just
Or an
seems
easy
to be
costume.
cool or scary, or a lazy, easy costume.
Or
Right,
they have
yeah.
cousins who have shown them the movie without their parents knowing.
I think a lot of kids wearing the Scream mask have never seen Scream.
Yeah.
and
Well,
they've
that's a
never
good
seen
question,
Friday
though.
the 13th.
We talked about this last week, being children and being exposed to horror movies. do they mess you up? Like, what's your recommendation
That's a
for
great question.
horror for children? Because Joel and I both, Jake not so much because he grew up near Amish town. We grew up watching, we talked about It, and I watched some disturbing stuff over at my grandma's without her knowing that I shouldn't be watching at
Right.
probably 9 or 10.
He drugged his grandma just so he could watch these things.
Oh, wow. Let's get into that.
Cocktails, whatever.
What did she record that she thought it was a cute name?
She sent me a video with The Land Before Time, The Wizard of Oz. This was back when you recorded things on VHS.
Like 3-to-1 tape, because you're recording on SLP or EP.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they were very long. So like Land Before Time and then Candyman. And so I'm downstairs and I'm all, Candyman, huh? And I'm like, this?
What's he doing with that hook?
Yeah. Will you just say what in the mirror?
Before Time, like the happiest cartoon of all time.
Yeah.
Well, happy? I don't know.
That's pretty sad. I also thought Candyman was also kind of a lazy killer because Beetlejuice, you say his name 3 times.
Yeah.
And he's there. Takes 5 times to get Candyman.
Right.
I'm like,
Really?
Come on,
Well, he's
Candyman.
he's probably coming down off a sugar high or something.
So you for your kids or us for like our kids,
Yeah.
when do we have them watch what? I mean, because do you have them watch
That's a
the
good question.
Disney scary movies first and then kind of move from there?
Goosebumps.
Or do you just drop him right in the middle of Night of the Living Dead?
Right. I just, Hellraiser or something. From the beginning. Pinhead coming at you.
And if you don't brush your teeth, the Cenobites will find you.
Exactly. You know your stuff. That's a good question. I would say, first of all, there are you got to know your horror genres.
Okay.
So you do have to know the difference between like a slasher horror film, like Saw or something like that, and then something that has more suspense type horror to it. I mean, and then you also have to know your kid. So I love it. People ask these questions all the time, like, at what age can I, whatever, let my kid try crack or whatever the question happens to be.
Hopefully soon.
Parents, this is the one nowadays is how many hours of screen time? It's
Yeah,
like you go
yeah.
a minute over and then they literally have peanut butter brains or something. Their parents are worried about that. And I would say, well, I usually give mushy answers. I'll try not to be too mushy, but the truth is you kind of got to know your kids. For example, my oldest son, like we've always been, because I am a geek, into science fiction and, scary movies and all fun stuff like that. So my oldest son, he probably remembers lightsabers and things before he remembers anything else in his early childhood. And I remember when Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones came out. So the opening scene where the ship kind of unexpectedly explodes. Spoiler alert.
No one's going to rewatch it.
We've already talked about episode 2.
Scared him so badly that he didn't want to go back to the movie theater for any movie for about a year.
Wow.
And so I realized I wasn't really paying attention to the fact that for him, it was more like the darkness and the sound, and he was used to a lot of imaginative play because that's how I would play with him as a kid. And so I realized I had to dial it back for him. But honestly, my 9-year-old daughter right now, she rolls with stuff. So you kind of have to know what fits your values as a person. Like, what am I okay with violence wise? And you can have a lot of fun with scary movies with younger kids, like Watcher in the Woods. Do you remember that?
No, it's a great starter.
Yeah, that's a great scary movie for little kids that they're going to have a fun thrill. But there's no blood. There's nothing really objectionable about it. It's just the tension of there's a Watcher in the woods.
Have you seen the deleted scene, by the way, the alternate ending where they actually show the Watcher?
No,
I haven't either.
It's on the DVD. You can probably find it online, but they actually show the Watcher.
Really?
And it's this weird looking puppet. It's like it's a very freaky Muppet, it looks like. And I can totally understand why they cut it out because it kind of kills. It's creepy looking, but it just kills the fact that you never see the Watcher.
Yeah, you never get that, huh?
It's out there.
That's okay.
Is that the Blair Witch as well?
No, it's a very interesting thing that on the DVD that I was like, whoa, cool, let me see this alternate ending. And then it was.
I'm showing a lot of self-control by not pausing this and going in.
Yeah.
Right now.
Actually, that brings up a really good question. Why for me anyways, but I want to say why are we more afraid of things that we don't see in movies or see very little of rather
Absolutely.
than like an actual
I call
scary
it the
monster
Jaws
right in front of us?
principle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like they wanted to do a lot more with that mechanical shark than they felt like they could. And so it's the anticipation, your own imagination, it plays upon your own fear. So if we want to be psychologists for a second about it, the
Please
truth
do.
is Michael Myers or Voorhees or any of these characters that, might be scary and fun, they may not really be your thing. Right. So you've got your thing somewhere deep inside your psyche that's kind of like, that's what scares the out of me. And when we can't see it, we all get to kind of subconsciously tap into our own thing. So in a way, we're all experiencing that ultimate fear that's very personal when we can't see what it is.
So we're projecting our own deepest fears on the screen.
Well said.
Huh.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it actually reminded me of we used to go to hypnotists all the time, not psychologically hypnotized, but go to those hypnotist shows, where it's like
you're trying to stop
it's some back room of theaters.
Yeah, Joel's had a lot of therapy.
My friends
He
and I
needs
used
some
to
more.
do it for a long time, and I remember there was one where he would do this thing where he would hypnotize people, and I was actually on stage at the time, and I never really knew if I was hypnotized. All I knew is that I had this kind of weird, warm, fuzzy, I'm up for anything kind of feeling.
Yeah. You were hypnotized.
Apparently. But they did this thing where you walk through a haunted house and he'd walk you through and all he would say is like, and you're going around a corner, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't say anything other than there it is.
There it is.
And then afterwards he would ask you what you saw. And I remember some of the responses, and I don't remember if it was the time I did it or not, but there was this one girl who said, I saw a big, fat, slimy man with no belly button. And I remember being like, what?
That's awful.
But I remember vividly when I did it.
Yeah.
He said, there it is. And then afterwards he asked me what it was. And what I saw was, and this is just kind of my imagination doing its thing, was a clown, but it had a skeleton face. It was just like the eyeball. It was just holes for eyes. And
That's the scariest thing I've ever heard in my life.
It was creepy. And I remember thinking, was that my subconscious just putting the deepest, darkest fears out there? Or just my imagination being like, hey, let's put something together. This will be fun.
I mean, probably it was the former. Like, I think partly it is your imagination, but we all have things that are kind of trip our own fear meter, whatever it happens to be. And it's not always, I mean, in that case, you were asked to verbalize it and think about it. But I think when you're watching a movie like Jaws or Watcher in the Woods, any of these where there's a lot of, build up and anticipation and you're not really quite seeing, you see something shuffles across the room in the dark or whatever. It's fun. But I think even though you may not be able to know what you're afraid of, just you're tapping into your own personal fears. However, if they just show it to you, like if it's Pinhead sitting there looking at you, then you're like, it's Pinhead. And then your psyche kind of evaluates, am I afraid of this or not?
Right, like the alien at the end of Signs.
Exactly, yeah. Am I afraid of this? Signs kind of blew it, I think, at the end by showing the alien too much. In my opinion, if they would have dialed back on that, it would have been maybe a little bit better.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
I would agree with that.
But nobody, M. Night Shyamalan didn't call me. That's my opinion. So
I talked to him. You're cool.
Okay, all right, good.
I also wanted to bring up this because I studied film in college, and one of the things we talked about when we were talking about genres was that the horror is actually a safe zone to process fears. And
Absolutely.
that I heard this in the class that people who watch more horror movies are able to process and react to terrifying situations more quickly than, say, someone who doesn't.
Yeah, I think there's two big things. So, I mean, kind of back to the point earlier where, we really like horror films. They do really well, even though they're not particularly well made. Often, kind of the budget goes into some kind of special effects, makeup and stuff.
Buckets of blood.
But you don't even have big actors usually.
Yeah.
So why do they do so well? Why are they so popular? Why are they usually number one DVDs? That kind of stuff. Do people still do DVDs?
Yeah, well,
I think so.
Blu-ray DVD.
Yeah, Blu-ray.
Make
or
great
whatever.
coasters.
They do, yeah, and you play catch with them. But I think there's two major theories. So the first one is what you said, which is it's a very safe outlet. Part of your subconscious can say, I know that I'm okay here, that there's nothing actually potentially that can hurt me. So I can actually give in to the fear and kind of go with it and have fun and go on that roller coaster ride. And I'm processing to some degree my own fears. I'm with other people. It's supportive. And I kind of go all the way through to resolution where it's okay in the end. Even if the film ends in kind of a unresolved way, which most don't. But if they do, you're still leaving the theater into the light with your friends, and it's fun and all of that. So I think absolutely people who watch horror films get a chance to process their own fears, and that's why you get people saying one of my specialties in therapy are anxiety disorders, and so a lot of people will ask me, is it weird that I really I kind of don't want to watch these films, but I do. I kind of have this morbid curiosity. I feel like I'm drawn to it, and I do it over and over again. And there may be different reasons why that is, but in this context, it is often their mind's way of trying to work through fear. They're facing it in a safe context. They're working it through, processing it, so to speak, come to a resolution. They feel confident at the end.
I actually kind of lean that way because, as Joel knows, I watch the weirdest scary movies.
Some of the things
out there.
he says,
Yeah.
it's just he'll just tell me the plot summary, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, good heavens!
Yeah.
And I'm not a
Joel's
prude.
kind of my mom sometimes.
Yeah.
He is a prude.
Go
Don't
to your
let him
room.
get you wrong.
But Kent Delve's pretty dark.
But I'm pretty drawn to it. But there are times when, say, the wife and kids are gone for the weekend. I'm batching it up, and I go, man, I'm going to watch it.
Batching it up?
Is bachelor,
Baking batches of cookies.
Yeah, and eating batches of cookies.
Yeah.
Because
Man, I'm coming to your house.
yeah, you should.
He doesn't wear pants.
Man, I'm coming to your house. I don't know what that means.
And
I
we're
have extra
back.
pants.
Yeah. So there will be nights where I'm like, I really want to watch a scary movie because, whatever. And then I sit and I go, I'm home by myself and
Yeah.
it's getting dark.
Yeah.
I want to watch this, but I don't think I can because I feel like I'm inviting something here with me.
Yeah, so
then
it's
you
a
put your
little
pants
less
back on.
supportive.
Yeah, I put the pants back on.
Cumber pants.
So I could. So real quick, that totally reminds. I've never told anybody this. I don't think.
Got a
Secrets.
Baconsale exclusive.
Honestly, I don't think I've even told my wife this.
Oh,
In graduate school, living in Kansas, so that's creepy.
Is it?
I don't know. It's a little weird because it's so flat.
yeah.
Anyway.
I felt like I was going to fall off when I was driving through Kansas.
You get a little vertigo.
It's weird.
They actually did a laser mapping study entitled "Kansas Really Is Flatter Than a Pancake" because it showed that compared to the average pancake, there's less contour to Kansas.
I'd seen that before,
True
actually,
story. Yeah. But do you remember when the movie? The Blair Witch Project came out.
Yes.
You remember that?
99.
Okay. So
Yes.
I was in. When did it come out?
1999.
1999. Yeah, I was in graduate school, and it came out in 1999. And in graduate school, you just don't have time to do anything. And it was one of those things where my wife was like, "Kansas blows. I'm taking we had one kid at the time, taking the kid flying to California and go visit the family." I'm like, okay. So I was home alone, and I was coming home from school late one night. And I thought, I'm going to just have some fun. It's like a Friday night. I'm going to go rent a movie because you did that then. And I went
People
in.
still do, by the way. I mean, this is
I
in
know.
2017.
Where's the
Yeah.
closest place you can rent a movie?
Redbox.
around here? Oh, that doesn't count.
No. I live in Bountiful. I don't mind saying.
Top Hat.
At Top Hat.
Everyone loves
that's
Top
right.
Hat.
Top
here.
Hat's around
Blast
here.
from the past. You go to
Yeah.
Top Hat.
They always
and
had the most obscure
and
movies.
my favorite thing is you go in there and the movie you want is rented out. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
and you're like, I love that feeling because
Yeah.
that was my whole life growing up.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Kids will never know that.
so I rented the Blair Witch Project. I went back to the apartment. I put it in. I had ice cream and watching Blair Witch. And the lights are out. And it's like 1 a.m. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm scared. And I was so scared that I actually turned it off. And then I felt
like
really
midway through the movie.
Yeah, at some point I turned it off and I went and got in bed and I thought, okay, what would a psychologist tell me? And I'm like, I had to get back up
Gotta
and then I went and
process that
finished
fear.
the show.
Oh, you did?
You have to.
But it was like 3 a.m. by then. But because I was like, I actually freaked myself out. I don't think I've ever told anybody that.
Wow.
It's okay because I actually, if I'm ever by myself and I watch a scary movie, I lock my bedroom door.
I have to.
like a little
that's
tiny
gonna
lock's going to stop an
That's gonna
intruder
stop.
or
I
a
have to
ghost.
stop.
I have to close windows and close doors because any darkened area, I got to look over and someone's going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when my brother and I finished Blair Witch Project, we watched it at home as well.
Yeah.
And we got done, and I remember we just kind of sat there because the ending is shocking and quiet.
Right, yeah. It's
And then
creepy.
we sat there, and all of a sudden, I think we both just realized that right outside this big bay window behind us is a forest.
Oh, nice.
And both of us kind of went, close the window.
Yeah.
Just close it.
Jake,
The
have you seen that
greatest thing
movie?
is those false
Oh, yeah.
senses of security, like put the blanket over your head,
Yep.
close the blinds.
Yeah.
Because that always stops Mike Myers from killing you, right?
It does. And I'm liking that we have a giant window
Giant
over here.
bay window right here.
Yeah, I've
But
noticed
level
that.
or blinds.
The blinds help.
Yeah, and there is a forest right there.
I'm glad
back
Kent's
there.
closest to the window.
I'll die first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you don't have to be the fastest; you just can't be the slowest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the black guy.
Yeah, which I'm probably,
It's a horror movie trope.
Yeah.
Who are you, me?
I am not being racist. It's a horror movie trope.
It's true. It's true. I'll give you
Let me
that.
tell the listeners the one other thing. So the one was the processing. The other one is just the thrill. It is a lot of us live very sedate, mundane lives. I mean, they're not bad lives, but they're very routine, and that's good. And going to the movie theater, you get this jolt of adrenaline, and it's fun. And there's something about the group psychology of it. So at a theater,
Oh, yeah.
if you've been to a really fun scary movie at a theater with a big group of people, that's a fun time.
Yeah.
As opposed to at home, you can kind of freak yourself out.
I've often said the best movies to see in theaters are horrors or comedies.
Yes.
Because
Definitely.
You're laughing or screaming because you can sniffle in silence at a drama at home, and it's just the same thing.
But we wouldn't do that because we're men.
Well,
No.
I like dramas because I like to put my nose up and,
Yeah.
be above everyone else. You mean with everyone else.
That's pretty much what Ken does. He sits
Every
above
movie.
everyone else.
Oh, I thought that was amazing. So
Man.
anyway, those are kind of the two theories about why
It makes
horror
sense.
movies are so fun.
Yeah.
Now, would you
popular.
say, as a psychologist, that excessive amounts of watching horror could affect your personality and or actions?
Yeah, but so that's a great question. How does media affect? Can we turn anybody into a serial killer through watching horror films? And the answer is no, but maybe.
Dang.
No, but maybe. I don't know.
I've been trying with Ken.
That sounds like just maybe.
Here, Ken, watch this one.
And I watch
Well, the
it.
answer is no, but here's the thing. Some people are kind of predisposed, and that's a whole conversation for another time. But
Yep.
people that might be kind of emotionally or psychologically unstable or potentially so, or at maybe an unstable time in their life, and then they watch excessive amounts of violence in a video game or a movie, and that could have a negative effect on them. It's unlikely that person's still going to act out in the same way.
Right.
I know that's the popular media theory, but if you actually look at the research, it's not that clear cut. So the answer is no, other than you might just burn somebody out on those horror films. Can you desensitize people to violence? For sure.
Yeah.
But what we do know is there's a deeper human quality, and if somebody were to, it'll bring you back to kind of more humanity. So if somebody were to watch a lot of violent stuff and then they take a long break from it, they kind of tend to come back to homeostasis a little bit.
So there is hope
Yeah.
for Kent.
So
A
if,
little bit. I don't
So
know about
if-
with
I
that.
think it's too late.
so
Joe.
I think I'm a
with
normal
the
guy,
Toronto
but I
ones,
watch
though,
Human
no.
Centipede every day.
No,
Yeah.
Is that okay? Like every day.
So there's an obsessive quality to Kent that we need to explore.
Apparently.
Because here's one weird thing about me. I am desensitized to anything. I can watch any of the Saw movies or whatever, or
Yeah.
as gross as you get with gore. But Jake tried to show me a actual picture of a mangled hand the other day, just a picture, and I ran away.
We should clarify. It was,
You like
it was a
refused
coworker.
to see this.
It was. We should clarify. It's a coworker who got his hand caught in a table router, and so
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nasty.
he sent a picture, and it was terrifying.
And everyone's looking at it, and
We're
I
talking.
can't handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kent will not look
Well,
like. We're trying. Like there was like this, like the children's version of a picture. Like he basically had like a scratch, and Kent was like, ah. And then I'm
actually
like, you want to
passed
see the
out.
real one, Kent? Is no. He just leaves.
Yeah.
You know.
But I
you
can
see
handle
the
like
real deal,
legs
huh?
getting twisted off, heads getting popped off. I laugh if a head falls off in a movie.
Yeah,
but it's usually pretty awesome.
Actually, that's a great comment. Research is very
Thank you.
clear that if we look at kids and adults, our brains automatically decipher the difference between fantasy and reality. So, for example, if there are any parents out there listening, along the lines of kids and media, a great book to read is called Killing Monsters by a guy named Gerard Jones, who's not a psychologist, but there's a lot of good research on solid psychology in there. He's an educator and a former comic book artist and writer. And it's a fascinating book where he's gone through and looked at the research on different media forms. And that's a good place to kind of get this information. But the research is very clear that if a kid watches something that's kind of scary, they recognize that this is fantasy, even though it may still scare them and upset them. It can still cause nightmares, don't get me wrong. But they understand that they're not truly disturbed if you were to watch somebody being actual video of somebody really being hurt or harmed versus a horror film. The reality is much more damaging to a kid than the other, even though the other still may be scary and cause nightmares. There's a physiological impact. It's very different. So
there's a different
watching the
feel to
mangled
it.
hand versus watching, somebody get destroyed in a movie.
Yeah.
You know the difference as an adult. And the one hits you in an involuntary way. If he actually had to leave, I mean, that's kind of that involuntary response that your brain is like, this is too real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, exactly.
I ran.
Well, I'm working with my kids right now too, where I have young children, and I'm showing them Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller, which is scary for kids.
It's a good choice, though.
Yeah, I mean, the cat monster saying "Go away," and then Michael Jackson turning into a zombie and attacking the girl. It's all
Was it
very
a cat
terrifying.
monster or a werewolf?
It's a cat monster, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
I just thought it was the first stage of the werewolf
No,
change.
it's called. They call it the cat monster.
That's a little bit
And
weird.
I know this because
It's not a terrifying name.
with my kids, no, it's not. It's Michael Jackson.
Just really selfish and
It's
wants to stay
Michael
away from
Jackson.
people.
He's terrifying for other things, but no, but it goes with it goes hand in hand. I tell my kids this: yes, you can watch Thriller, but then we watch the making of Thriller immediately after,
And then you can see
so they can see how it's all made. And I tell them that's chocolate syrup in
clever.
his mouth, and
Yeah.
they actually are able to handle it a lot better to the point where I don't have to show them the making of, but I still do.
And it's kind of fun fantasy, and you can do all that, and then you still have to kind of know your kids. And some kids are just very, very sensitive to those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And you know that that's just not for them. But most kids truly can see that, and that's actually an excellent way to do it. Good job, Dad.
Thank you.
And they have fun with it. They
Hear that,
realize,
kid?
oh,
I'm
this,
the best dad.
I don't think I said that. But,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
So we did. I was going to say we brought along a list of some movie monsters.
Yeah.
That and we sent them to you. And movie monsters, serial killers in film. And as a psychologist,
Yeah.
we've asked you to kind of psychoanalyze these
Should I
different types
pull
of
up
people.
my list? Am I going to be?
Is there one you
We'll
want
read them
start
off
with?
to you.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get to them all, but
Yeah,
No.
there's too many. Maybe Matt, if there's one in particular that jumps out, or
Yeah. Well, let me make a comment. So I did actually read this. It's not that I didn't read it. I read it. And
When I
actually
text
kinda
Matt,
went
he
through
reads
it,
them.
just making sure I had seen all these, and I have definitely. Some they're interesting because you kind of have a mix of real monsters, and
Yes.
then you also have psychopaths.
yes,
So that's we could talk about that. But one, go ahead.
Even on the base level, you could diagnose them. For example, like Samara. Even though, yes, she was drowned in a well and all that.
but she was crazy beforehand. If you watch those interview tapes,
Yes.
that's when she says the
But
whole.
yeah, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
You were,
No, but I wanted to just one thought I had was there is a difference between you guys have kind of given more of the modern list. Could we say that really? I think it's more modern. Like if
not
we,
hipster enough.
It's
no, he's
pretty
saying there's
hipster.
no Frankenstein, there's
Yeah,
no mummy,
so
there's
who-
no
I think I went to
Batman.
Dracula, didn't I?
There is Dracula.
There is Dracula,
We have
yeah.
Dracula, and then to help clarify, in brackets, we have from the movie Dracula. So that was, I appreciated that. That was helpful because I was like Dracula. Oh, from the movie
Dracula from Vampire in Brooklyn.
No, it's actually it was a mistype. I actually meant to put Dracula from Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Oh yes, yes. I didn't see that
Terrifying
one.
movie.
Yeah. It does sound scary. But I was going to say that kind of like we were touching on with the superheroes, the original movie monsters, if you want to think of them that way. So what do we have? We have Dracula, obviously,
Wolfman,
The
Frankenstein,
Invisible Man.
Invisible Man,
Invisible
Creature
Man.
in the Black Lagoon.
Oh, definitely the Mummy.
Yeah, start with those. That's a pretty good primer right there.
The difference between kind of that group, and maybe we can talk about them for a second, and like some of the more modern, Mike Myers and those characters, is they're more archetypal. They're more kind of these primal characters. So if you think about the Wolfman, and there is a difference, right, between a werewolf,
Yes.
and the Wolfman,
Much
right?
like the difference between Dracula and vampires.
Vampires, absolutely.
Not all vampires are Draculas, Mom.
Exactly.
Just a little bit of anger.
Yeah, I hope she finally gets that. But the cool thing is they kind of represent. So an archetype represents some other structure
Okay.
in your psyche, and so that's what I really love. Those. So I was telling you guys earlier before we started. I've been this time of year. I always kind of like to go back and watch the classics when I'm doing other things. I'll put it on the TV. For example, the Wolfman's one of my favorites because it's really this projection of that inner beast, that kind of primal, hedonistic. Because what does the Wolfman do? At a certain time of year, he can't control it anymore.
He strangles people.
Well, he rips
He's got,
their heads
he's
off
got
and
claws and
strangles.
teeth.
Exactly.
He strangles people.
I mean, that's
That was
Freudian
always
right
funny.
there. I mean, that's that primal id part of our psyche where sometimes we just want to go animalistic. And then the next day we kind of bring it back together and we feel bad. Have you watched the original
Oh, yeah.
Wolfman?
I own that one.
It's a bit of a slow movie.
Yeah.
And it's trying to show the conflict or the dichotomy between these two parts of this guy. And that's really what it is, manifestation of can we control that inner beast.
Yeah, much
you
like
know?
the Incredible Hulk and the Avengers, right, Kent?
Absolutely.
Let's not go there. We don't need to talk about the Marvel right now. Although I would say,
Not a
kind
Marvel
of
fan.
like you were talking about archetypes. Like if we're going to talk about superheroes real quick, I think DC is more archetypal because they are more classic, very
Yes.
static, and whereas Marvel are more like maybe modern movie monsters, where they're a little bit maybe slightly
Yes.
more complex.
Yeah, they're a little more human.
Yeah.
And you definitely have more of an archetypal hero in the classic superheroes, which are more DC.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with that. I still like the Hulk, though.
Yeah, I like the Hulk too.
I don't know why
Joel.
you got to be hating.
No,
I don't
hate.
We need to psychoanalyze why Kent hates Marvel movies.
That's
at some
another
point.
show. That's another show.
Yeah.
Get you on the couch.
But then if you kind of contrast those characters, they are. Now we're playing on more modern fears a little bit. So zombies, for example, zombies are kind of that Cold War kind of time where what's going to happen? Something's going to happen. It's going to take over our minds, and then we're going to be infiltrated by this mob that we can't stop. It's this wave coming at us of change that's going to change us into something we don't want to be.
Kent
No,
does.
you're looking confused.
No, I really like
Kent
that.
said last week, we talked about zombies on our show last week, and Kent
Joel.
said he wanted to become a zombie, and he said, quote, I'll kill you. If I get bitten, I'll kill
Take it
you
easy.
first, and then I'll turn into a zombie.
No, I said let me become a zombie because I want to see what it's like.
Exactly.
No, but we had the zombie show last week, and that actually brings up a new point where maybe it is more kind of a government thing or an opposing force coming in and kind of changing your mind about something, whether you like it or not.
Well, if you think about the original zombie films, they're these slow-moving creatures, so that's not that scary, and it's just this insidious takeover, and that's kind of that Cold War fear. And I think there's really two Cold War monsters that really infiltrated the United States. The first one was UFOs.
Yeah.
The idea of UFO and that kind of post-World War II communism fear.
The other one
And
was the
then,
Blob.
Blob, yeah, I don't know, maybe. I didn't get a bone up on my Blob. Wait. Anyway, so then there's the zombie. It's after 10, guys.
Yeah, it is.
There's the
I'm
zombie
getting excited.
Anyway, maybe we beat that horse. But I like analyzing the fact that these are playing on real fears that we have. And then you get into some of the modern characters. What are some of your favorites from this list?
Well,
Like,
I
you guys
mean,
have a
if we're
favorite?
going to go, let's start with Norman Bates. Because
Norman Bates.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, Norman Bates is great.
Because they do psychoanalyze him at the end of that movie.
Definitely.
But is it an accurate representation of what a psychologist would say about someone like Norman Bates, or were they kind of romanticizing it for the film?
I mean, so you save your letters. Do people write letters?
We get a lot
Save
of
your
mail.
Emails. I know,
A lot
right?
of mail.
it's just
Yeah,
Facebook
they-
comments.
It's mostly haikus from Jake.
Yeah. Okay. So the intern's going through that, huh? But I think it was fairly reasonable given the character they were trying to portray, if I remember correctly. But the truth is, Norman Bates is kind of the fear of the guy next door seeming normal, and then he turns out to be a psychopath. So that's what they were playing.
Do they
on,
characterize him in the movie as a schizophrenic? Because isn't that a false diagnosis?
I don't know if they say that word.
So schizophrenia is a diagnosis that's often misunderstood, primarily because of psychiatry's naming it a bad name. Like schizophrenia means split mind.
Okay.
And so people always take that as split personality.
Okay.
And that's not accurate. A schizophrenia is a brain disease disorder that causes hallucinations and delusions, typically paranoia. And so a true schizophrenic is kind of withdrawn and stays away from you, and they might hurt you if they're kind of paranoid, thinking you're after them, but they're really fairly safe. I think what they're going after in Psycho is somebody who has a split personality, which is now called dissociative identity disorder. It's kind of these two personality fragments existing in one person coming from childhood trauma. And so a person can flip into one personality as more of an escape, but it's not a full personality. So he had this traumatic childhood.
Kent and Kenny D.
Exactly, right. You never know which one you're talking to. The voice
I want to swear at you right now, Joel.
Kenny?
Kenny, yeah. And so I think that's what they're portraying there is his trauma of the backstory of what happened with him. And he kind of over-identifies with his mother and creates this kind of personality of consuming mom, and he kind of becomes her.
But with dissociative identities, something
Disorder.
or other, yes. Is that something where like mother could actually control him, or does he realize what he's doing with the personality of mother?
Whoa.
That's deep. It would be more
That's how it goes.
according to the movie, because it's real, right, guys?
Yeah.
Right. That would be more the latter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We wouldn't assume he has like normal conscious control. of
Well,
that.
he was based on a real character.
Yeah,
like a real
based on a
person.
real-
That's on Ed
Yeah.
Gein, who was the
Yeah, Ed
serial killer
Gein,
in the
sure.
50s. But it was that exact thing where it's a small, sleepy town. Guy next door
Right.
has a barn full of body parts.
Yep, and that's kind of that fear. I actually when I was living in Kansas, this is why Kansas is kind of creepy. When I was living there was a report that sure enough, they found some remote farm where there were a bunch of dead bodies buried on the farm. I can't remember why they were excavating and they found these dead bodies and they had to go and do this big investigation.
They were under the world's largest ball of twine, weren't they?
Yeah, right north of
I
the
knew that ball of twine was haunted.
True story.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Why?
That's a real
I've
thing.
been to one in Kansas.
Yeah, it's a real thing. I never went. Anyway, yeah, so he was more of and not everybody, okay, and again, save your emails. Not everybody who has multiple, it used to be called multiple personality disorder, now it's dissociative identity disorder, which sounds ridiculously semantic, but the difference is important. It's a dissociation of one's personality. It's not multiple personalities. It's not like there are 4 different people in there. It's just that you kind of got the tough version and the weak version.
So that's an inaccurate representation in what's that movie? The 7 Faces of Eve or something like that, where they have...
There are a lot of problems with that movie.
Or like that one, The United States of Terra. They have that movie on, or that TV show on right now, where they actually have all those different personalities.
Yeah, I think that one may be a little more accurate, but I haven't watched it. I think that the idea is that the personalities may seem... Think of it this way. If you're looking into a mirror and you drop the mirror and it shatters into...
I did watch Oculus just last night.
Okay,
so
you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Then you would look at that and you could kind of see yourself in all the broken pieces so that it would be you, but it wouldn't be a complete you.
Whoa.
And so there are aspects of you in there. So usually born out of trauma, somebody who's maybe ritualistically abused as a child has to dissociate, go away in their mind, escape what's happening to them physically. And then they kind of usually create kind of this alter ego, if you want to think of it that way, that might be the tough version of themselves. And that's the most common split personality, is where you have the normal you and then the tough you. And the normal you is kind of seen as the weakling who gets abused, and the tough you is kind of like that bully buddy that comes to stick up for you. And so somebody who's had that experience, they might be a normal person. You push their buttons and then they kind of go Hulk on you.
Okay.
And then later they're like, I don't know why I did that. I don't really remember doing that. That would be a more common example.
And that's a really similar or a really common like type that's shown like in movies and things, right? Because
Right,
it seems like
yeah.
I've seen that a lot. Like,
Yeah. And that's more accurate for reality. In the psycho case, you have kind of that combination of maybe a multiple personality situation and a psychopath. Somebody who is an antisocial, who sees other people in a predatorial way, and they want to consume, control, own them.
Is that like Hannibal Lecter at that point?
Yeah. Hannibal Lecter would be... The clinical term is antisocial personality disorder, meaning they don't create social relationships with other people. Other people are kind of objects in their environment to meet their needs. And so if you're meeting their need, they might be quite friendly and nice to you.
Right.
If you're not meeting their need, then you are not important.
So kind of like
your dinner.
Does
So a
meeting
lot like
meeting their
Kenny,
needs mean dinner?
Yeah.
No, because
So-
I mean, with Clarice, he treated Clarice like a colleague, and
right, because she was meeting his needs.
exactly, and then everyone else that got in his way, he would dispatch of. Hannibal Lecter is
Yeah.
who we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
not
Sounds similar.
Not me.
Yes.
that was
I mean,
earlier.
So on this list, we have a few of those. We have Max Cash from Cape Fear.
Max Cady, that was a typo.
Max
Sorry.
Katie. I thought Max Cash didn't sound right.
Yeah, my phone treated to Cash, and I found that out after.
That's
so
okay. And then later there was some Max Katie. Okay, that's what it was. Right.
Yeah, that was the
I was
correction.
just thinking Candy at that point. I was hungry.
Candyman.
Yeah.
That's 3 times we've said his
Hannibal
name, guys.
Lecter is a good one. Leatherface is another good one. Where you kind of have this combination of something psychologically is wrong with the person. What is it? And
He ain't right in the head.
But can we talk about that though? Because I
Yeah.
think Leatherface is more a product of not of his handicap, but of his family.
Well,
Yes.
couldn't that be the same be said of Norman Bates, though? But his mother...
We never really knew the origin of Norman
The
Bates until
assumption with
sequels and
Norman
everything.
Bates is
Yeah, until
that-
you watch the show.
But like Leatherface, you can clearly see that his family has always been demented and
Right.
raised him as such. Like, how
so
would
you
you
think it's
diagnose
nurture
that?
more than nature?
In
Yes.
that case, there's probably over time there's both, but like it's more of a trauma history if you want to think of it that way. Being raised in a traumatic way.
And basically, he was used for one thing. They would send him out to kill people, to hunt.
right.
And there's only one. I think there's only one personality there.
Right.
Right.
It was just called to action whenever they needed him.
It's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is an extreme, but it's fascinating to me that children can be brought up in an environment where they accept things as normal that are so far beyond normal and so wrong. Like parents who raise their kids to like Twilight. You know, it's just
right. That's sick.
But no, like, and that's the thing with Leatherface is
Soundbite.
Yeah, exactly. To him, this is just normal activity, and this is
Right.
socially acceptable because of the environment he was raised in.
Yeah.
when really it's horrifying, and that's
So,
scary to me.
One of my favorite book series, and this is delve into my nerdiness,
Is Twilight?
Stop it. He's a guest.
It's not Twilight. Okay, it's Twilight. No, it's not Twilight. It's called the Last Kingdom series by Bernard Cornwell. And they're actually Saturday. The BBC America is premiering the first episode of. They're turning it into a series.
I think you just
Game of
out-geeked
Thrones.
us.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And so the 9th book, I just pre-ordered the British version today, or I bought the British version today.
Nice.
And it'll be coming, because you have to wait till January. How screwed up is that to get
That's
the
messed
American
up.
version, right?
Messed
We
up.
don't do that.
Like the
Anyway,
BBC.
it's about this guy who's a Saxon. He's raised by the Vikings, and then he comes back to the Saxons. And he kind of makes this observation about the Vikings, which fits this. Trust me, I'm getting there. And that is that, raise your killers young before they develop a conscience. And
Good advice for parents anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much, right? But that's the point, is that those early life experiences that we have become integrated into what we see as normal or part of our psyche and our personality. It's part of how we see the world. So whether it's a Norman Bates situation or a Leatherface, or back in the day with Vikings and stuff, if you were going to be a killer, you train them young.
Yeah. But then you get the guys,
natural-born
and
killers,
you get Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon, and he just doesn't follow the norm.
No, that's
Really? You're bringing up Hiccup?
I brought up Hiccup.
That's not really the Vikings we're talking about.
So what about Michael Myers? I mean, you talked about horrific acts when they're young, and he did what he did because he's a demented child. Would there, in reality, be any hope of rehab for Michael Myers?
Because from the
That's a great
beginning,
question. I
like
like
that's
that.
the thing is, Michael Myers, for those of you who haven't seen the movies from Halloween, he is that masked killer in most of the film, but from the beginning, there's a scene at the very first movie where he's a kid and hasn't been in a mental institution all his life, and he's still just
Can
horrible.
any of these guys be rehabilitated? That's a great.
Yeah, I think I'd be a lousy psychologist if I said no.
You're like, I can do it. You're the second to die.
Drugs, lots of them.
But no at the same time. I guess we have to look at genetic research. I actually had this conversation with the med students earlier this week on antisocial personality disorder, and we were talking about, these were not psychiatry students, they were family practice docs, and they don't know as much. And no, I'm just kidding. And,
Rivalry here.
yeah,
Ouch. There goes all our family
don't
practice
know
fans.
as much about. I know, right? Big population actually alienated. They don't know as much about psychiatry. So we had a really interesting discussion about the genetic factors, and that most of the time we think of personality as learned and developed over our lifetime, and that is true. But there are some personality disorders that seem to have a heritable component, a genetic component. And the scary thing is that antisocial personality, which becomes the sociopath that we see about on TV, actually has a fairly high genetic loading.
Really?
So even people who, let's say, somebody who's an antisocial sociopath fathers a child, that child is raised in an adoptive situation, they have much higher rates of antisocial sociopathic behavior.
Wow.
And these parents are kind of like, what the heck?
we didn't raise you this way.
We did the whole thing. And,
We just named you Damien because we thought it was a cute name.
Yeah, Damien. I don't know what happened there. Hannibal seemed okay. It's interesting. So there could be, to answer your question in a roundabout way, there are at times children who show antisocial characteristics from a very young age, which means, think of it as predatorial.
Okay.
They're preying on other people to get their needs met, and they lack that normal human connection that would make you rethink taking advantage of others.
Okay.
Combining that with an environment that supports it, and you really could raise a pretty serious serial killer. And that's the facts. I don't know.
So, this is kind of related, but then would Jason be in the same boat? Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th?
See, that felt more revenge-based through the entire series.
It does, but at the same time,
So who's the psychopath there? Is it Mom? Or
Good question. That's a very good question, Dr. Matt. Let me answer that for you.
Thank you.
So, spoiler alert from 1980, the first Friday the 13th movie.
Kevin Bacon classic.
Yes, it is.
Classic.
We love Kevin Bacon movies.
Yes, we do.
Well, we love referencing them here in the movies or here in the podcast. But in the first Friday the 13th movie, Jason is not the killer.
Right.
Jason was a kid at the camp who drowned while other camp counselors were making out. And so
Making out?
Making out. And family friendly. His mother was the one who was exacting revenge on all the counselors that were at Camp Crystal Lake.
Right.
And it's not till the second movie that Jason is raised from the dead and come to play. And it's not even until the third movie until he wears his famous hockey mask.
That's true. Good recap. Thanks, man.
Thank you. That's what I'm here for.
I think the difference maybe there is a supernatural element to.
Can you psychoanalyze a supernatural being, though? I mean, is that...
Why not?
That's what we say.
If they have good insurance.
He's like, I'll do whatever I want.
They have great insurance.
Yeah.
They're actually covered by Medicare. So.
Oh, no, that's bad. I don't see no government insurance, man. I want to get paid.
And now we know.
There goes all of our government insurance listeners out there.
Yeah, right? Man, I'm alienating your whole base.
No, it's fine. We only have one listener, so we're good.
And it's your father.
It's my dad. We sit there listening to the bacon shirt going, I hate that damn kid of mine.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Was I supposed to
well,
psychoanalyze him? I
so
don't know.
Jason, is there anything there, or is it, or his mother? Let's go with his mother.
With his mother, well, we don't really know her backstory, but she seems sociopathic, right? Like she isn't being appreciated and treated the way she wants to. She's exacting revenge for her kids,
But on
for her
people that weren't
child.
even related to
But
it.
they weren't related. So there's a psychotic sort of element there that she doesn't care about people, just revenge. So it's an antisocial view of humans that I just need to selfishly, hedonistically fill my own need of grief by killing others, which is a little over the top. It's not one of the normal grief.
You're still talking
steps.
about her. You're not saying I is in you, right? Like,
Right.
making
No,
sure-
like this
Guess we
hasn't
gotta go.
actually.
We're in a safe environment
happened to me.
still, right?
It's the trust tree. We can talk about it.
Oh, good.
So,
No, we've been throwing a bunch at you. Is there any on that list that you would like to specifically address?
I'm going to cut you off first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we're talking about Jason.
You associative disorder.
I always do this. I am always, anyways. Why the masks? Why do we need masks on?
Why do we need a hockey
and not
mask?
so much nowadays.
Why do we need a William Shatner mask? That's what Michael
right?
Myers wears.
Michael Myers,
terrifying.
Like, why would a monster be like, yep, I'm wearing this mask and this is now
Well,
my
see,
trademark?
That's the difference. It's not a monster, and it creates the separation between you and the person. So Frankenstein is a monster. The Wolfman is a monster when he's transformed, but Jason Voorhees, Mike Myers, they're not really monsters. They're people. And so by putting a mask on them, it creates that separation. It's a little bit like earlier in our discussion about the separation or the imagination that's created when you don't really see the scary monster. So
you could say
They're not
you're
just a person. They're a symbol.
and it
I was just Googling that. Dang it.
The city needs a symbol.
needs a symbol. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it creates, it's dehumanizing, it's separating. It
So-
allows you to kind of wonder what's behind the mask. There's
Is
a little bit of that fear.
Batman, this is jumping into Batman, but is Batman along the same lines of, say, a Mike Myers, where he puts on that mask to...
Batman is an example of somebody who's right on the border of that probably Jason Mike Myers thing,
Wow.
where he is a little bit psychotic. The real Batman, not 70s TV Batman. The real Batman.
You mean
is
Christopher Nolan's Batman, the real Batman.
The real Batman is
Michael
a little
Keaton.
bit psychotic in the sense that he is going to extreme lengths. We have actually de-violenced. Is that a word? It is tonight. Batman. But if you look, what's the original Batman cover? Do you know what he's holding in his hand?
A gun?
A Colt 911 45.
Really?
Yes, he is.
Wow.
In the original
But
Batman
Batman
cover,
hates guns.
not originally.
Says
'cause
all
he
the
was
Nolan boys out
the
there.
Dark Knight.
Says
He went
you
out
all the
and
time.
exacted revenge, and he killed people. That
So-
was the original Batman.
Wait a minute here, because I may have had a breakthrough, Doctor.
Okay. Yes.
This is good. This is going to be good.
No, I just thought to myself that Pam Voorhees, her son died. She wanted to exact revenge on all the counselors.
Right. Just because they were
Batman,
counselors.
his parents died. He dons a mask and wants to kill all the criminals. Well, defeat all the criminals.
Yes.
Right. Defeat them.
Yeah.
Great. I love it.
So Batman
it's a
is
good end to our
Jason.
session. You can pay on your way out.
Okay, I'm covered by Jacob Care.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
I pay in hugs.
Joel, you're covered by Kent Cares.
That's never going to catch on.
It's not a thing.
Because Kent Cares. Are there any you want to cover real quick?
Well, I mean, we left a few psychopaths off. So
Sure we did.
Annie Wilkes. I mean, that's
I wanted
actually
to ask about
great,
her.
Oh,
right?
Annie Wilkes from Misery.
Yeah, so that's somebody who
What the
has
crap
this-
is going on with her?
She's delusional. She's delusional, and
She is one of the most terrifying people
sociopath.
on this list
is.
because she
Yes.
could be real.
Right.
That listener of Baconsale, I'm worried that I'm going to end up in their house and they're going to break my ankles.
Oh, please no.
Well, that brings up a great point that a lot of these more modern, like Hannibal Lecter, Norman Bates, Max Patty. I like Cash better. Annie Wilkes, even Jack Torrance. These are real people that you could fall into, fear with but they could trick you. They
Is
could be the
falling into
person
fear
next
like
door.
falling into love, only
I
scarier?
think I made that up right now, but I really liked how it sounded, so I just kept going with it.
I like it. That's a good title for a
It's
book.
Stockholm
Falling into
syndrome.
fear.
That's what it is.
Hey, Jake, I'm in fear with you.
Yeah, copyright.
He called it.
So I think that our modern sensibilities, just like, man, we're making a lot of superhero references here, but if you go back to the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and you look at surveys, who was the number one most popular superhero?
Superman, right?
Superman,
gotta be.
absolutely. But Superman is more archetypal. He's kind of a Christ figure. He's not very realistic as far as
He's the
humans
golden
go.
boy. He's a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Well, he's like Jesus. That's what he's set up to be. That's the archetypal character that he's based on. So he's not really relatable to a normal human, and he has superpowers out the wazoo, right?
Yeah.
Batman, nowadays, if you go and look at surveys, typically the number one most popular superhero in the United States is not
Aquaman.
Superman.
Jessica Jones.
Or I know you love the Aquaman.
Yes, I do.
I know, dude, but you got to let the Aquaman go.
No.
It's Batman.
Yeah, it's
and
Batman.
why do you think that transformation happened in our culture?
Cynical people.
Well, I think it's that
Yeah, a
he's
little bit,
attainable.
sure.
I mean, we're not billionaires, but still, you
Well,
just need a
you're
lot
not.
Or
of
geniuses.
or geniuses.
Well,
but
you're not.
All you need is some karate classes
Or martial arts.
and a mask, and you could be
Well, you're
Batman.
not.
You could be a vigilante.
He has no superpowers.
Yeah.
Other than he's super rich and very
Is he
bright
technically a
and-
superhero then?
No, he's a hero.
He's definitely a superhero, but yeah, the super part you could debate. That would take us into a whole nother level of nerdiness tonight.
Yes.
that I don't
But let's
think
get
we
back to
have
let's
time
get
Yeah,
back
Matt,
to this.
you
Let's
are
get back to
spoiling
scary.
a
I
show.
think
A
that's
follow up with
why,
you.
If you look at the history, the classic monsters don't do as well. I loved the new Wolfman. Did you guys like that? You
Yeah,
guys
with Benicio
hated
del
it,
Toro.
right?
Toro one?
Yeah,
It was
I
good.
thought it was fantastic. One of my favorite lines is "pint of bitter, please." Like, I love that. Or where he's like, "It's a dog-eat-dog world."
That's a great Anthony Hopkins, by the way.
Thank you.
good.
But those movies don't do as well as the Psychopath Next Door type movies do nowadays, and I think it's because cultures have changed. People are a little bit more afraid by things that could actually happen. What's in the news? Psychopaths are in the news. Real war, real violence is in the
Ken
news.
said that last week that women were afraid of everything.
I
My
don't think I said that.
goodness.
Let's just put myself on.
We're
record.
not going to go there.
I can't wait till next week when I bring it up again.
Here's what I want to lead to now that you're talking about that the universal monsters, the classic monsters, are no longer scarier archetypes. Why are we marginalizing them? Why are we dumbing them down for teen fans?
Can I build on that too?
Yeah, sure.
In that back when Frankenstein first came out, people were fainting in the audience.
Yes.
But today, even if you show a child Frankenstein and having no real basis for horror,
They're like,
they're not as scared.
right.
Is that build on your question, or I just hijack your question?
No, that's a good lead in to my question
All right.
because I was going right for the Twilight. Why are we making these movie monsters
Why are we-
romantic leads?
Yeah, why are we romanticizing monsters?
Owning your fear. That's what it is. Yeah.
Or
It's
Owning
part of the process.
marrying your fear is what it comes down to.
Yes, consuming your fear. Like, I'll be Freudian for a second. It's like, what are your basic drives? Eating, sleeping, family
Making out.
friendly.
Family friendly. He knows.
He knows the terminology.
So you're consuming in that way this fear object, which is that. Plus, it's powerful. Vampires, man, they're very popular, and they still are. They kind of get reincarnated. They're not the Dracula vampires typically anymore, but they're just like zombies. Like World War Z, zombies are like they can run 800 miles an hour now.
Yeah.
And it's like if that were real, there's no survivors.
No.
No way. So
Unless
don't
you
get
have
me
cancer.
started. Or you're Brad Pitt.
Stupid
Spoiler
movie.
alert.
Yeah. What? Oh,
No one see that movie
tonight.
Oh no, sorry.
But
He's actually watching it on his phone right now.
Yeah.
This is in the podcast.
man, Brad Pitt is dreaming. But I think that vampires are also powerful. We do like that sense of the supernatural, but so there's the power there, there's the fear, and then you can consume it and own it by marrying it and having its devil child. I guess I don't know.
Whoa,
I didn't
Rosemary's
actually
Baby
see
now?
Did they have a baby in the
They
Twilight
did.
thing?
They did. They had
Yeah.
a creepy CGI face.
Yeah, I
The
didn't
scariest
ever
baby
watch
ever.
it.
It was terrifying.
If that girl, the lead girl, what's her name?
Kristen Stewart?
That's her name.
Yeah, if she wasn't so terrible, I probably would have watched the films. But I don't want to make out with her at all. Like, you know what I mean?
Wait,
Like,
so is that your barometer for like, am I going to see a movie tonight?
So do you not watch any Tilda Swinton movies?
Not a one. So like, if I don't want
Honesty.
if I don't want to make out with them, I'm not going to watch the film. She just seemed like a problem. Like I just wanted to send her to her room. Like all the time, I'm like, you're grounded.
Seriously.
Right.
I felt the same way a lot of
You
times.
seriously need
Gosh, Dad,
to
you don't even
turn in your
understand me.
phone and go to your room.
No,
That's not a you.
no. We do have a lot of psychopaths on here, like you mentioned. Like we have Chucky from Child's Play, who's Charles Lee Ray, I think is what the killer who gets in the doll's body is.
Right.
Ghostface from Scream, probably also just a psychopath.
Here's one that I bet a lot of people don't know, though. Pinhead.
Yeah, the
And I will say that
from the movie Heckraiser.
Crazy.
Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Family friendly razor.
Yeah.
We can say hell.
When I was in high school, one of my best
Talking about the
buddies.
place.
Oh, do you guys know do you know the name Stan Winston?
Yeah.
Anybody know? Okay.
Yeah, makeup artist.
Yeah, I follow him on Twitter.
Or
Yeah.
costume, or
Yeah. Well, you may follow his kid because Stan's dead.
Oh, no.
But
who am I
but
thinking
Stan
of?
Winston Studios. It's a makeup special effects studio.
the
still.
alien one.
What's
Yeah.
his name?
I forget.
cut this
HR. No.
No,
Geiger.
HR Puff and stuff.
Yeah, HR
HR
Puff and stuff.
He made
Sorry
the
for interrupting.
That's
Rick
okay.
Baker.
Rick Baker,
It's
that's
Rick
the one.
Baker.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so
Stan Winston
that's
did the effects for
everything to do with my
Thriller.
story, man. Come on.
Yeah. So Stan Winston and the Ghostbusters.
Were at my house for tea. Was my buddy's uncle growing up.
Really?
And so Stan was a really cool guy, down to earth, fantastic guy. And so we were fascinated. We'd read Fangoria. Is that Fangoria?
Yeah, it's Fangoria, yeah.
Yeah, Fangoria. We'd read that, and we always wanted to grow up to be, special effects guys. And then his dad owned a bunch of weird little businesses. One were the mom and pop video VHS stores back in the day. And so he always had this garage full of movies that was going out or coming in from these movies. So we would stay up and we would binge with friends at his house and watch horror movies. And one of my favorites, I loved the Hellraiser movies, family-friendly Heckraiser movies. And
But can you love Hellraiser?
I loved Hellraiser.
That's a dark, gory, terrifying movie.
because he was such a great creepy character, and I always figured out. I would sit there and watch and think, how terrible would it be to like get your shirt on and off with the pins in your head and all that kind of stuff.
I wonder, did he put them in himself, or did someone else have to do it?
I don't know the backstory on the pins. Actually,
The reason I like that
they tell the
movie,
backstory.
and Jake watched it for the first time last year, did not like the movie at all.
Really,
Well, I thought he was a really cool character.
Yeah, I
like
love the
I only watched
character.
the first movie, and I'm like, lame. Oh, he's cool.
But the
Yeah.
movie
Yeah,
itself
that's
is
probably
almost
good.
like it's
That's
kind of
pretty accurate
it's kind of a distracting movie, much like Friday the 13th,
Yeah,
because
we
it's
can't-
about a woman having an affair and trying to resurrect this this guy.
Yeah.
And bring basically killing people to bring his body back to life. Kind of strange. And then at the end, there's a puzzle box, and Pinhead shows up.
exactly.
It's a bit strange.
Yeah, it's probably been 20 years since
And
I watched
since-
it, so
and,
that's a good reminder.
Just for reference, Pinhead and all his black leather wearing people are all just called Cenobites. So that's
Yes,
the name
yeah.
for those beings from the other dimension who come and torture you.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was part of my Mac OS. I use Cenobites.
I got 12 Cenobites on this computer.
Oh no!
You got to upgrade. So my point in bringing up Pinhead was just that nobody knows it anymore, knows the character very well. Or a lot of people don't even have any idea who Pinhead is or Hellraiser. Those movies have not kind of stayed popular, and I think besides the fact that you guys are making a really good point, it wasn't a good movie. The character, you can have a
None of
terrible
these are good movies.
right? But it's not a relatable, scary character anymore, just because it's too different than a real.
Can I play
human.
Freudian for a little bit?
Sure.
You're not the doctor.
I know, but
You can play it though.
I don't think
well,
you get,
radio.
I don't think you get the roles of the show yet.
wait, if I'm sitting by a psychologist, I am now a psychologist,
That,
right?
by nature,
Osmosis.
yes. You're
I'll
also,
be the
you're also a
audio video
parakeet
guy.
and a giant spoon.
Pinhead and the Cenobites, they all wear black leather, right? They all, when they show up, they make people suffer.
Yes.
Yes.
And it is and they get glee from it. Would this be akin to 50 Shades of Grey type community? The BDSM sort of people? Like, cause that's what I feel that Pinhead is. I mean, Joel's smiling.
It's funny how you dance around the subject.
Yeah. But I mean, it's
Sadistic
torture.
pleasure.
Yeah, sadistic pleasure.
Yeah.
Would
Definitely.
that kind of be akin to that?
That would be the thread between those two.
So
things.
it's like
yeah.
Netflix would go, hey, you like 50 Shades of Grey? You may also like Hellraiser.
Hellraiser 4.
And that's probably true.
But I want to bring up something, too, that much like how Pinhead doesn't show up till the end of Hellraiser, and Jason isn't at all in number one. As these movies progress, as these sequels go on, these iconic horror movie characters become caricatures of themselves.
Definitely.
Like, you get to the end of the Nightmare on Elm Street, and Freddy's just like this wisecracking idiot that you don't even fear anymore.
I know, right?
Yeah, and Jason's just, I mean, he's this mindless killing machine, but they kind of lose something as they
I
progress.
don't know. They
I feel.
fought in space, didn't they?
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
So I don't know how that could be silly.
No, not at all. there is one here I wanted to talk to you about in particular, was Jigsaw from Saw. I don't know if you've seen those movies or not.
Those types of movies don't interest me a ton anymore, but I think I've seen the original and maybe number 3.
Because I was going to pitch it to you is I'm not a huge fan of torture porn movies.
Really?
No.
Okay, because it's
really.
a family film.
I've seen all the Saw movies.
But they turn into that. Like, the first movie
Yes.
is actually a psychological thriller. The second one kind of, and then it teeters over into whatever. But spoiler alert for Saw, Jigsaw is a man who has a terminal illness, and so he wants to make other people appreciate their life better. So he feels he's doing good. Mm-hmm. So is he still a psychopath if he thinks what he's doing is helping these people, even if it's these extreme measures?
Yeah, we call that a delusion.
So,
okay.
Definitely.
But he's still
That's
a
fair.
psychopath.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's deluding himself into thinking what he's doing is helping people when in fact he's torturing them.
But they do feel pretty
And
happy
traumatizing
after.
them.
I mean, Amanda was so happy.
Relief isn't really the same as happiness. If you don't have all your body parts, then happiness is hard to obtain.
Yeah.
I only lost one arm.
Yeah.
Sweet, I have another foot.
Exactly.
Nope, it's gone.
Well, I think we've gone through most of these on the list here. Oh, there was Pennywise from Stephen King's It.
Clowns are freaky, man.
Is that your official analysis?
Is that more a problem with
clowns.
us? Because are clowns just scary because of John Wayne Gacy? Or
you know what clowns are originally based on? Clowns were originally intended to scare people. They're based on hobos, the literal hobo. The big red nose is that big bulbous nose of an alcoholic person who the hobo from what is that, the 20s or something? Jumped the trains, and parents would say hobos became kind of a cultural horror character in a way. They would say, don't go out because the hobos will get you, and they'll hang out down by the train tracks because the hobos will get you. And so then the clowns.
Where does the permanent grin come from? Because that's what creeps me out.
You there, whiskey? I don't know. I think clowns. Clowns come from that kind of theatrical sort of representation of something that's intriguing and scary at the same time. But
isn't it funny that like clowns are hired for? And I don't think it's very common these days, but clowns may be hired for a birthday party.
Well,
but there's always about
part
4
of that
adults
is
there going, "Why? Why did you
are we
do
doing
this?" Yeah.
Well, it scares kids and it gets their attention, and they get to kind of like being in a movie. You're processing fear and attraction in a safe place that you can work it through. So it's a very similar thing if you bring a clown to a kid's birthday party. Clowns, I don't know, if you brought a magician, the kids are likely to kind of ignore the magician unless they're particularly charismatic. Because, but you still bring a clown, a real, true clown to a birthday party to do the same tricks the magician might do.
And they will huddle in the corner.
And the kids are like, they don't take their eyes off the clown because the makeup separates them. It's a mask.
It's terrifying.
And it's scary, but kind of fun at the same time. And
And you bring up John Wayne Gacy, and that's a famous serial killer who was a clown at children's parties, and that terrifies me that you don't know who the person is behind that.
It's like bringing a lion to a party, and then the lion does tricks for you, and then ties balloons, and you're like, I guess the lion's friendly.
By the end of the night, you're like, we're all safe. It worked.
If the lion is tying balloons, I'm hiring that lion.
That would be amazing. Yeah, probably Hogle Zoo would get more visitors. But I think partly that's in the actual John Wayne Gacy case, his access. The people who want to prey on others find ways of accessing them. Like a lion will sneak through the tall grass, modern day serial killers tend to cloak themselves in normalcy. And so they will find ways of getting into your life. And that's the scary part.
Will you walk me to my car after the show? Because now I'm scared.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, we have on here Freddy and Jack Torrance. Either one of those stand out, or are they kind of lumped in with others?
Jack Torrance is a great character
From
in
The
the
Shining.
sense that if you watch The Shining, if you watch the beginning where he's kind of needs the job, he's kind of desperate, he's kind of a guy behind the 8 ball in life, and then he cracks. I'll be honest, I don't mind admitting, I don't fully understand him in the picture. at the end. Do you guys get that?
Not really. Like it's kind of like implying that he's
The hotel
joined
owns
them.
him.
Yeah, he's part of the hotel now. But
I didn't know if that meant more like he was possessed or he's been consumed by the hotel, or if that was more a projection of like that's what happens to people when they come there. I don't know, but I think he's more of one of those like they had a psychotic break type characters. So they're they're kind of a sadder character in the sense that they're not like a Hannibal Lecter who is kind of cracked a long time ago and is preying on people. He's kind of trying to do the right thing, be a good guy, but he just can't quite do life.
Right.
And then he gets into a situation that pushes him over his limits, and he kind of has a psychotic type break. Yeah.
okay. Whereas Freddy, I mean, he had stuff happening before he was burned by the parents of all the kids he killed or whatever.
Well, he was a child molester, right?
Yeah. And so he had that whole issue, but then post
an
that,
issue, yeah.
he turns into this kind
call
of
it
this cat who plays with his food. Like he toys with these people.
Yeah.
And it seems like he just goes beyond what Jason would do, which is just stab, stab, and he wants to play with them more.
Yeah, he's more of that sadistic sort of sociopath who's really enjoying the hunt. And so when we talk about real psychopaths or sociopaths, people that prey on others, that's the best way to think of it is and if you can't wrap your mind around this, awesome. Because that means you're normal.
Ken,
I've got my mind all around it.
Because if you can't really understand what it would be like to see other people as objects to meet your needs and that you could prey on them, like, because we don't even do that. Most of us with animals, you're like, well, I don't run over dogs in the street. I would feel bad if I killed a bird with my car or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, but these people kind of see people as objects in their environment to meet their needs, and they're disposable. And then you add the sadistic pleasure aspect of playing with them, torturing, toying with them. Mm-hmm. Then that's kind of a fear that I would be under someone's control who is that way. They become a monster in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if we could go back to more classic monsters, I want to talk about Frankenstein.
Okay.
Because I think the book Frankenstein and the movie Frankenstein are two completely different characters.
Very different.
Totally.
Because the book, it's a very intellectual character.
He's articulate. He's suave.
Mm-hmm.
And
he just looks.
Maybe
like
I want you to more break him down because there's a lot of complexity there.
And the Kenneth Branagh version,
Yes, it goes
is
into that.
actually a better version if you want to get
with Robert
closer
De
to the
Niro,
book. Yeah, De
who was
Niro's
Max Cady.
Yeah. Ooh.
Dun dun dun.
And yeah, I don't think that makes a connection, but yeah, I mean, it's cool. No. Talk about that. Well, so which one? The classic?
The classic
book?
one, because I think there's a search for meaning. He's not as much a monster in the book, but there are times where he does some terrible things, whether on purpose or not on purpose.
Yeah, I think the character is kind of like the alienation from society that we all fear, that we'll be misunderstood, that we're trying our best to muddle through this life, and we're not going to connect with other people.
And I kind of see it as a search for a creator,
Yeah,
and feeling like the creator betrayed you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
Psychologist, ding.
No, we already
honorary
established you're a
PhD
psychopath.
goes to. Yeah.
Well, can you walk us out to our car when Kent goes out with us?
What is going on here?
I will take sadistic pleasure in saying good night. I mean, I think that it's more almost a search for meaning and purpose, and then you kind of go through this life where you're misunderstood, alienated, alone. The anger that comes from feeling. That God doesn't love you. I mean, I think that's really what the original Frankenstein is about.
That's deep.
Frankenstein's monster, really.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly.
Well played.
Yeah, and
Because what was I doing?
Kent.
Yeah.
And
Kent's
not
over
called
there
him
really-
Frankenstein?
Frankenstein. I'm over here like, just keep in mind.
That's like calling Doctor Who,
yeah.
right?
Don't call Doctor
is
Who.
he? Who?
Yeah.
But another thing is like the Frankenstein's monster is kind of bringing humanity together. It's not an integrated self. So it's pieces of different people trying to work together, if you think about that.
There you go.
That's super
So-
deep.
There you go.
So-
He's a society.
It's kind of reflection of humankind's search for meaning and purpose and how we basically screw things up.
Wow.
Kent, you really knocked it with that question. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
That's what I do. Do you have a favorite monster?
Yeah.
Wolfman.
Wolfman?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
And you want to know what my favorite superhero has been since I was a kid?
Wolfman.
Hulk. I mean, I think as a little kid growing up,
You watched the 70s series and
oh yeah, love it.
Bill Bixby. And
Sad music.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
No, I never missed it. That's the truth. I actually should have. I should have brought it out. I have a bunch of great original comic covers of the Hulk. Yeah. But the reason I think as a kid I love that, and it's always kind of stuck with me, both of those characters, is that's kind of like the task of being a young boy growing up in modern society. We're not allowed to be wild and brutish. You can't just let your inner id out whenever you're upset or angry. Or most of us weren't raised in homes like that. We're raised to, be good and make good choices and be kind and help old ladies and be a scout and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think that little boys often relate to those types of characters where they just kind of have these breakout sort of moments and yet still can be kind of powerful and sometimes in the Hulk's case, good. But the Hulk is kind of a hybrid of Frankenstein and the Wolfman, because he's kind of misunderstood but wants to do the right thing. He tries to overcome that Hulkness about him, whereas the Wolfman is really just that interplay between your two aspects of who you are. That
so what should that tell us
part
about you, though? If those are your two favorites?
Well, is there a full moon? I think I'm admitting, I'm sharing.
But do you feel, Dr. Matt,
or Dr. Hyde, whatever?
Yes, that your interest in the duality of man is kind of what drove you to study psychology?
No, it's because you get to wear sweaters,
cardigans.
Yeah, it's a cardigan.
He's actually wearing 4 right now.
No, I love them.
You just won't do that Mr. Rogers thing where you just keep taking them off.
I think sort of. Obviously, there would have to be some curiosity there. I think originally, my first psychology class, I was an undergrad at BYU, family friendly.
Go Cougars.
I took, my first semester, I took Psych 110 or 101, whatever the required one is for your major, for generals. And I thought it was the stupidest class I ever took. So boring, I got a C+. Quit going to the class.
C's get degrees, sure.
Yeah. Later, I got into 2 things that brought me into psychology. One was neuroscience. So, I'm one of those Mormon kids. I went on a mission, came home, didn't really know what I wanted to study, started studying some neuroscience stuff and thought that was really cool. Thinking, well, maybe I'll go to medical school and doing that. At the same time, I needed a job. Mm-hmm. So I started working as a part-time PE teacher at an elementary school, which I wasn't qualified for, but hey, it's Utah education.
Climb a rope, kids.
Pretty much. It was kind of, run around, kick the ball. We still played dodgeball when I was in charge. It was fun. I started getting really interested in why the kids did what they did more than the games we were playing. It was kind of like, it's interesting. Why would that kid do that? And I found myself kind of talking about behavior as it relates to neuroscience to my neuroscience professors, and they would get really annoyed with me, and they finally said, there's this course you need to take. And it's okay. It's in the psychology department. It's still pretty good. Go over there and take this neurodevelopment course. And that kind of got me into being interested in the brain and how brain and behavior and that science kind of works. And I think that's what got me into psychology. But certainly the other part of me, the really geeky part of me, is always, I've loved mythology. Mm-hmm. And if you read like Carl Jung and some of the early psychoanalysts, even Freud, talking about how we project a lot of our developmental needs into literature and stories and characters and archetypes. And that was fascinating to me. So there's a lot within psychology that's really interesting. And even though we're having fun with monsters tonight, can you see how human beings created these characters? Mm-hmm. And why would a human create a character like the Wolfman if it's not a projection of our human needs? Kind of like any mythological character in any story you've ever read.
Can I ask you about that then? Because you just brought up a point in my mind, is that these people who come up with the ideas for, say, Saw or Hostel or those things like that, should we be concerned about them, that they have these things bouncing around in their mind?
Well, if they're on that babysitter service, I wouldn't have them babysit.
Because I wonder about that. These people, who came up with this idea?
Well, partly, it depends. Some of it's formulaic. They know that it's business, and that the creepier and weirder it is, they might snag an audience, and then these films are fairly cheap to make and make a lot of money. People who are really into it,
for example, like Guillermo del Toro. Like all he does, he sketches just horrific things in his notepads.
But his is like a beautiful horror.
It is, but still horrific.
Yeah.
What's the new movie he has coming out?
Crimson Peak next week.
The sequel to Crimson Tide.
Is it really?
No.
That's cool.
Thank gosh.
Denzel.
Twin Peaks. It's kind of a combo. I don't know. Probably. I don't know. Maybe they should make.
See, I feel like he's kind of normal. He's just a fanboy of sorts, and he really likes that sort of thing.
you have some folks that are just extremely creative. They're different. Have you ever, I love in the office being able to talk to somebody who's a truly artistic type mind and thinker. Somebody who abandons a lot of logic in favor of creativity and seeing where that goes. And then you combine that with whatever they're drawn to, which may be a reflection of some of their own issues and or needs. So that creativity could become beautiful paintings of flowers or some crazy, creepy nightmare. And why they're drawn to their creativity to be an outlet in one of those versus the other, I don't really know. But like Guillermo del Toro is one of my very favorites because, of course, he is the creator of my very favorite, which is Hellboy. He's my favorite superhero. And
yeah, Joel really likes Hellboy.
I will defend his superhero-ness to anybody, anywhere.
By the way, Joel does not like Hellboy, but that's for another show.
No. It's okay.
Hellboy 2, The Golden Army is fantastic.
It's okay. But I started reading Hellboy. Have you read Hellboy?
I have not.
With
I've read Heckboy. It's very different.
Mike Mignola. Actually, I think
we've already said Hellraiser.
Whole show. I created a whole character called Heckboy, and he was born in Provo, and it was a whole thing where he at BYU campus, and he came across to the other side, and Heckboy saved us from not choosing the right. I mean, it was a whole thing. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah, no copyright. Anyway, but
just throwing them out.
I love Hellboy. Mike Mignola, that is just one of if you love mythology and paranormal and all of that science fiction stuff, there is nothing better than reading Hellboy.
No,
the movies are great, and I love them visually, but they really don't even touch the books.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love it. Do you like how this is like a half superhero, half
it's
movie?
more.
This is what we do, though, Matt.
We're going to have a superhero show later on.
I would love to do a superhero show. Yeah, I can go on and on.
You sure after this experience you still want to do another one?
Absolutely, yeah. You guys let me talk, and I try not to curse.
We just don't let Jacob talk, is what we do.
I shut his mic off several times.
Jacob's been over there going,
I'll sleep. What were you guys saying? I don't know.
But to kind of wind down a bit, we each brought a fear that we would like to talk to you about and see if there's any sort of deep-rooted or thing inside that you could help us with.
The answer is yes, but go ahead.
Yeah. Who wants to go first?
I want Jake to go first.
Okay, Jake.
I'm going to go first?
Yeah, or do you want me to go first?
Ladies first. Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just thinking about punching him.
So far, we've had a racist comment out of Joel and a misogynistic comment.
Wait, what was the racist comment?
I don't know.
Black guy's diaper.
Oh, that was an observation.
I'm joking.
You're like, it's not racist if it's a fact.
Stereotypes are mostly true, right?
That's what Joel was saying earlier.
I think I was quoting Kent earlier, too.
Right when you told me that I think women are stupid, right?
That was what you said.
No, I did
the
not.
last show.
Matt, just to clarify, and I think this should be clarified here, is I said women are far more logical than men, and they actually fear, like in terms of movies, movies about serial killers or crazy people coming in and breaking into their homes, whereas I think men are more what goes bump in the night, what's hiding in the dark, supernatural.
Yeah,
because women actually fear crazy people, crazy men out there. For actual reasons.
Well, that's what he says. That's what he said. He
no,
meant,
but
what he really said was women. Am I right? That's all he said.
Yeah, we're supposed to just interpret the rest.
Which leads me to my fear: women.
We'll have to do a whole other show.
Yeah, why don't you go first, kid?
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I do have one main fear, but let me tell you, just kind of let me break down what I think would be the scariest situation that I could ever be in. It's night. I mean, it's dark.
Okay, check. So far,
Is it a stormy night?
I get kidnapped.
Okay.
You realize Jacob and I are planning a prank on you with everything you say here.
Write this down.
I'm thrown into the back of the car, blindfolded and everything. All of a sudden, I'm put on a boat. Okay?
Oh. Yeah.
And I still can't see anything. And then we go pretty far, and they throw me out in the middle of this body of water.
Right.
It's pitch dark. And there are possibly sharks in the water.
My palms are sweating.
Wait, you're worried about the sharks? I mean, you're drowning.
Everything.
No, seriously.
The darkness. The unknown of how far the shore is or not.
The band, The Darkness? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
I believe in a thing called love.
Joel sings a lot.
He doesn't sing at all this episode.
I know. It's kind of disappointing.
I'd sing the Hulk theme earlier.
Oh, yeah.
That was good, actually. I did.
But for me, it's the sharks are my number one greatest fear.
Are they really?
They are.
How'd you like that Sharknado?
Love it. Okay. Absolutely love it, actually. But yeah, that would be terrifying.
Okay.
But sharks, and especially the ocean at night, scares me so bad. But and I know the kidnappers thing was kind of silly, but just being placed in an environment where it is complete unknown with something underneath me that is bigger than me on the food chain.
What would have happened though if it was Christopher Nolan walking with his arm around your shoulder and then throwing you in the water?
I'd willingly go just to hang out with him. Jump on in. All right, Chris.
I'll be the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all those things. I mean, let me ask you just.
No,
just
see,
to
this is
cover my
don't let this get
bases.
too
Kinda
deep.
listed out the fears
Just to
there.
cover my bases. Were you ever kidnapped and or thrown in a tank of sharks as a child?
No.
Okay, just wanted to clear that up. Just didn't want to.
I'll
miss
tell you
some
where
background.
my original fear of sharks comes from, and it's
tell me.
actually not Jaws.
Okay.
Jaws was a good stepping stone
Okay.
to make me terrified, but my older brother, who is 6 years older than I was, so let's just imagine me at 5,
Yeah.
sleeping on my bunk bed. He used to come in, and he was, 11 at the time,
Dressed as a shark
dressed as a shark.
from Saturday Night Live.
Like, I could even
Land
be...
shark.
Yeah, there you go. I'm a dolphin.
Telegram.
I could even be on my top bunk, and he would read. We'd have these nature books, and we had one about sharks,
Yeah.
which just had a couple of pictures of scary sharks, whatever.
Nature versus nurture. I see where you're going.
And he would tell me that there were sharks in my closet.
So he wasn't the brightest 11-year-old, right?
Yeah, well, he knew that would
Did
get me.
Did the sharks ever come out of the closet?
That's another episode. As
That's
well.
another episode.
Any shark could marry any other shark. I don't know what you think.
So
I'm supportive
at all
of that.
times, I feared that the closet would open at night,
Yeah.
and water would fill my room,
Oh,
even though I was
geez.
on the second floor of my house,
Yeah.
and I would be exposed to sharks.
Yeah,
and then
terrifying.
And then Jaws happened,
Yeah.
and messed me up.
That's a
And then
silly
anytime I would go to Pineview Dam, I would go to Bear Lake or a swimming pool.
Yeah.
Like surf
Or
and
the
swim,
bathtub.
I would feel like shark. If there were ever
Yeah.
gates or anything, I would feel like a shark could possibly be there.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me?
My wife says that after watching Jaws as a young girl, that she would be afraid to sit on the toilet because sharks would bite her exposed butt. Isn't that hilarious?
Actually, in Australia, there is a snake problem with that, but that's another story.
yeah. Okay. Well,
And the spider.
So yeah, go for a psychoanalysis.
I would say so. What's the theme there? I mean, there's the childhood fear, and
Yeah.
as kids, we have these vivid imaginations where reality is abandoned, or never developed
Yeah.
at that point. You're 5, so you're very, a pre-contemplative child. You're not able to kind of think about the reality of what's going on, and it doesn't factor in. And even if somebody told you, it wouldn't matter. And you trust your older brother. Way to build on, break that trust. But the fears, like in adulthood, all have this theme of anxiety, not being able to see and control things. Like a shark, if you think about why is a shark scary, well, you only see its dorsal fin until it gets you. And so that's part of the scariness of the shark
Yeah.
for people is it's not that most people, I think yours is a little closer to a true traumatic experience as a child with a shark, even though it was an imaginary shark, it's still traumatic. But many people are afraid of sharks who've never had anything even like that happen.
We live in a desert, and I'm terrified of sharks.
Yeah, on a mountain in a desert.
Yeah.
Because it's a great horror image, a scary image, because you have this dark water and you can kind of know something's underneath there, but you can't see and control it. So all being kidnapped, being tossed out into the water to drown, and being eaten by sharks, all are things that you can't control and you really can't see coming to defend yourself. So that's kind of the theme of the fear is being out of control, not being prepared, not being able to see something coming. So it's kind of this
Mind blown.
anxiety type fear. is
Kent is
how
a
I
control
look
freak.
at
I
that.
see it now.
And I'm
wants
scared
to
of things.
But when it comes to like something that you could see, it didn't make your list.
No, and it's strange. Like, I love swimming in the ocean. I don't let it stop me, but I am always on the lookout. Or if I'm ever swimming in the ocean, I always have that fear
And
of
that
something
is-
Don't look
hitting
like a
my.
seal. Don't look like a seal. Don't look like a seal.
That's your logical mind kind of controlling that fear. But like you said, that fear is always kind of bubbling underneath there.
Yeah,
There you go.
Cool.
awesome.
Kent, that was great.
All right, let's go to you, Joel.
Oh, me? Well, truth be told, one of my main. I brought 2 just in case Kent would take one. And
Yeah.
indeed, it's not even sharks. Just things in the water bigger than me terrify me. Like I was standing on the edge of a cruise ship one time, and I saw the stabilizer come out under the water, and I had to step away from the ledge because it got me. But you already discussed that one. I'll move on from there.
It's kind of similar. Yeah.
I want to know why, and this isn't just common to me, but why do people run up the stairs when there's darkness behind them. Like,
Oh, yeah.
because you're not in the dark. You're walking, actually. Usually at my parents' house, there's a light in the hallway, in the stairwell. And so you turn off the light in the basement and then start going upstairs, and I have to sprint every time.
Yeah.
And I just imagine, and this goes back to maybe something I saw on
still
TV.
doing this, right?
Yeah, I do. As an adult. But like as an adult, like there was this movie, I don't even know, it was called The Children, I think, 1980, but there's these kids.
Children Under the Stairs.
No, not that one.
No.
That's People Under the Stairs. But
People Under the Stairs.
This one, The Children, I think it's called The Children. It was 1980, but these kids have black fingernails, and when they touch things, it burns them. And in my mind, it's like as I'm running up the stairs, because I know a lot of people run up the stairs, but in my mind, I'm running up the stairs, and I see these. I imagine these hands reaching up with black fingernails to grab my ankles and burn me or drag me down or something like that.
Well, so there's a couple things. I mean, one is, again, those sometimes at certain developmental periods when we're learning what to trust and what to fear, we can have experiences like older brothers or movies that really do make an impression on us.
My dad would pinch our legs sometimes if
as
he
you're
was
going
behind us up the stairs. Yeah.
That's a bad thing to do. So those can make an impression. The darkness, let's talk about that really quick because we haven't really talked about darkness. Darkness is a great, scary tool that's cheap. You just turn the light off and there you go. And whether it's in a movie or in reality. And evolutionary psychologists would explain that as primitive man had to learn what to stay away from, what was dangerous and what wasn't in order to survive. And that's made a genetic imprint on us. So if you look at some of the things that are the number one phobias for people, do you know what they are? Like the
clowns?
No.
Public speaking and death and darkness, something like
Well, public speaking tends to be up there. But if we talk about the number one type of phobia would be animal phobias are more common.
Yeah, like spiders.
But they're creepy things that you can't see, snakes and spiders. But most people who have true phobias of those things haven't really had bad experiences with them. That's why a mouse could be so scary to someone. Is it's this creepy little thing that, but the mouse isn't going to hurt you.
Right.
Darkness is in that category of the evolutionary psychologist's explanation for fear. Is that you can't see and control some. If you how is it? Jim Gaffigan talks about going camping, and it's all fun during the day, but then at night you're like, we're all going to die, right? And it's because you have that innate kind of primal sense that I should stay away from things that could hurt me. In our homes, we even sometimes, like this big window behind you, if my wife was up, she would walk by and close that at night.
Yeah, so would
but
I.
there's nobody back there. There's
that
a
you
forest.
know of.
Probably. But it's not like the neighbors would see us in here running around with our clothes off because that's what we do when the kids go to bed. But, but there's just a forest back there. But you can't see what's seeing you. And so for a lot of kids or, adults, running up the stairs, you just get that creepy feeling. And some of it's conditioned from childhood. You kind of get that the feeling comes back. It's associated with darkness. So you run up the stairs. It's in your parents' house, all that kind of stuff. But that's why you can tromp around in the forest during the day and have a lot of fun. And then at night, you're pretty vulnerable if you just have a little tent and a campsite. And you're kind of like, I'm not walking far from the light kind of thing, even though you were just in that very space an hour before when it was light. So darkness may have a kind of evolutionary, genetically endowed fear in order to keep us safe. The built-in safety mechanism.
Instinct.
So running up the stairs keeps me safe.
Said. Yeah, even though it's
and
completely
keeps
irrational.
Me fit.
Yeah.
That's what
Keeps
part
you
of the
fit.
workout, the fear workout program. Yeah, scare people into
Apparently, that's all I
fitness.
need to do to exercise. Just turn off the lights behind me, and I'll just
Get a
keep
really
going.
long stairway.
And then actually combining that with the imagery of the hands from childhood.
little black fingernails.
It'll still get you, sure. That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Jake, you're up.
All right. Well, I thought about this a lot because we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, and I don't have. Well, let me preface a little bit. I grew up 40 acres of woods, as Kent mentioned, surrounded by Amish.
country.
Actually, yeah. And
At all times, he was actually surrounded by a circle of Amish people at all times.
they just followed me wherever I
creepy.
went. Yeah, I was actually like a king
what
there.
state? Where'd you grow up?
Missouri.
In Missouri. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Not Kansas.
But I was a barefoot kid running around in the woods, basically, and I had a lot of.
corncob pipe because that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, seriously. Right.
Overalls, no shirt.
No, that happened. That happened a lot. That's a real thing. Yeah.
Ooh, talk about fears.
It's banjo country. I'm not even kidding. So anyway, but like things that went bump in the night. There were so many things to be afraid of that I realized that my mortality was actually very real as a kid. Like I could die from a number of things. Like I still have kind of a fear of heights, but even as a kid, I would climb trees. I fell out of a number of trees just because I was constantly facing it.
So much.
Yeah.
And it's what?
Nothing. Go on.
So I think somehow I got over the fear of death, and a strange thing I think has happened, which is the only persistent fear through my life has been a fear of living so long, like living forever after I die, that it becomes absolutely meaningless.
Whoa.
Wait a second. Living after you die?
Yeah, like
Death becomes her.
No, I mean like an actual assuming I continue to exist after I die.
Okay, so like eternity.
Eternity,
Yeah,
yes,
living in
eternity.
heaven. Right.
Yeah, heaven or however it works out that I live.
I'm sure
like
it'll be heaven.
You could say
Don't
hell.
stress
It's
about
okay.
it.
okay,
Or the other place you might go.
but
It'll be hell.
it doesn't even matter what it is.
Although I think hell will be more fun, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like heaven, like
Pressure is
the happiest
off.
place I can imagine. How long does it stay happy? Is kind of been my persistent fear. I mean, and I had this fear when I was a child, like a really young child. It was like there's nothing that could really satisfy me.
So you think like this is crazy?
It's a conspiracy. Sharks.
And
Jacob is contemplating eternity.
like Jake's like, I'm going to be bored of playing harps up in heaven.
Yeah.
No, that's
It's a
really interesting.
It's the only real one I could bring to the table.
You run up the stairs. Don't even.
I know. I'm not going to bring up my faults.
That's pretty deep. You beat these guys. You're the
Dang it!
Yes, that was the
I
plan.
got kidnapped.
Yeah.
I'm glad he didn't go first.
Yeah,
I think these guys gave honest
Mon-
fears, though. I just couldn't really come up
I
with
get in a
one.
5 foot
You're
swimming
the only
pool.
one that doesn't sound like a sissy. I mean, let's
That was my plan.
just kidding. That's not a real diagnosis. So I just want to recap here. So what you're saying is kind of this, since childhood, you've had this fear that basically good things can't last forever.
Well, basically that
You're going to get
Because you've
bored with
overcome
eternity.
death.
right, overcome death, and
You're
so like
living in eternity.
any good thing.
Most people typically think of that as good, but you're thinking eventually it's gonna wear out. It's gonna come to an end.
Right.
It's not gonna be good anymore.
You know, maybe it's a personality flaw, and this might be related. So I'll tell you just in case.
So, Katie, don't get down on yourself.
I'm not down on myself, but
We're going to cut this part anyway.
if I'm not in the middle, thanks, Joel.
Speak freely.
If I'm not in the middle, if there's not a challenge before me,
Yeah.
I get a little bit
Purposeless.
indifferent about life. Period.
It feels like you're afraid of being purposeless.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So if we were really going to kind of get into that, we'd have to talk about like feeling comfortable with oneself. Am I okay with who I am just for being me? Or am I afraid that without something external to define who I am, I'm without purpose? And so if you look at kind of the traditional Protestant version of heaven, it's very purposeless. It's angels sitting on clouds, playing your harp, singing praises forever. That sounds terrible.
Yeah,
Beyond
it
the fact that
does.
it's
It
boring.
does.
It just
Yeah.
sounds
I
horrible.
had a friend of mine who we encountered some J-dubs who said, you're going to be gardening in heaven. And he was just saying, I don't want to garden. And they're like, no, you're going to love it. He's like, I don't like gardening now. I'm not going to like it in heaven.
Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather be in hell
Garden.
eating Carl's Jr. on my throne.
Right. I think hell would be great just because like there's no pressure to like perform. You're just like, yep, went to hell.
Then everything went to hell.
It's like there's going to be obviously Xbox, cable TV, and junk food. It's going to be fantastic. Nobody's going to be yelling at you to do anything because you went to hell. Like, you know what I mean?
It can only get better from there.
There's no expectation at all.
No, but what about Dante's version of hell, where it's like, you have to go to the
well.
bathroom really bad, but there's no bathroom, and that's your
Yeah.
eternity.
You mean like locusts are eating your skin at all times?
Yes,
And
Dante was a bit of a downer. But
There's a soundbite.
yeah, seriously.
the slacker version of hell is more like, yeah, Doritos. This is
Yeah,
good. I got nothing
exactly.
else going on. No, I think you're actually being more, well, not more brave. You guys did good. It was
Thank
good.
you.
Very good.
No
I
way.
fear that Kent's going to reject me one day.
Already happened.
Call. He didn't text me back. I think that's more of an existential fear. It's not a personality issue. It's just a little bit deeper in the sense that how we feel about ourselves may and often does impact what our fears are. So if we want to take fear and anxiety as very similar terms, a lot of adult men, their fear / anxiety in life is not being able to take care of their family.
Big one of mine.
And so some people become workaholics and amass a lot of hours of work and wealth, really just to try to squelch that fear all the time. It's more of an internal drive that if I stop, then I'm not going to be able to take care of the responsibilities I have. And it's not just that I don't want that to happen, that they're driven by a fear deep down that that's an anxiety that they won't be able to handle. I think in a similar way, what you're talking about is, I need to feel like I have purpose. And when I contemplate the sense of like being in a situation that never ends, which you're also doing a little bit of existential angst there in the sense that our brains are not equipped to truly contemplate eternity. Like things never ending. Like if you're a kid, did you ever blow your mind by laying on the trampoline, looking up at the stars in the summer, and then like thinking about the fact that space isn't inside anything else? Like it never ends. Like how's that even possible?
Those things are actually related. Is I normally have that thought while doing something like that.
And I have a fear of trampolines.
So don't do it, man. That's a double whammy. So I think that in a way that's a common. It's a fear created by an inability for our brain to contemplate and really digest what we're thinking about, something that never ends, like the afterlife or space. On the other hand, I think it's kind of personal there with like, can I feel good about myself for just being me without an external purpose? And if you can kind of wrap your mind around that and kind of give that a little bit of attention, it might bring down some of that fear and actually help you be more successful in those external things, like becoming a space cowboy after you die. I don't know how it works.
That's all he wants.
No, that's a good insight. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Wow. Well, thanks, Doctor.
Yeah, it got real deep.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're talking about Jason Voorhees, and all of a sudden we're just talking about eternity and life after death, and it just got real in here, folks.
Yeah.
You know it.
All right, Dr. Matt.
Well,
you've been awesome.
Thank you so much.
This is easily our longest show yet, but I think that one of the most listened.
We're only going to cut out whenever Jacob speaks. So.
That'll cut it down by
people
seconds.
have to pay for the extra content, right?
It's prime after that.
Oh, that's a good idea.
No, it's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea?
Our listener wouldn't go for that.
No, that's true.
My dad,
Matt's dad, I hate that.
Wouldn't do that.
He made his own T-shirt.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think he just had bacon on his shirt, really.
That's
it was more like a mistake. He's messy.
Well, I was going to say, usually at the end we just kind of wrap up where we're at and where you can find us. Also, we'd like to remind you guys to rate us and review us on iTunes. We love seeing your reviews. It helps us out when you rate us on there as well. We like to hear from you too on our Facebook page or at baconsale.com. You can also find us at Twitter at Baconsale. And you can find me personally at I perform with Quick Wits on the weekends.
This weekend, actually.
This weekend.
Which people will miss because the show's on Monday.
That's why I never say when.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm actually doing 4 shows this weekend, a bunch of away shows. But you can get details about when Quick Wits does shows at qwcomedy.com.
You can find me at Twitter and Instagram at Kenny3DD, and my movie. Thanks, Matt. There we go. That's why I did that.
The reaction you wanted, right?
Sometimes I say 3DD, and
I make him eat that like most episodes.
What happened to the family friendly part?
I know. We said hell a few times.
Us BYU grads, we can't tell.
Yeah,
no.
And then you can find my movie reviews at ShowtimeShowdown.com.
There you go. Dr. Matt, why don't you go?
I live in Bountiful. You just stop by.
Just come find him.
Yeah, it's cool. You just stop in. Be my friend on Facebook.
Yeah,
there you go.
Sure.
Where can they find you on Facebook?
Apparently, my old Facebook page is still up because Joel stalked me there. But, I don't know how to get that social media. You put in my name.
Yeah. Do you have a Twitter?
Yeah, it's Dr. Matt Woolley.
There you go.
Awesome.
Twitter.
And Jacob?
Awesome. You can find me at Twitter at Jacob A. Rogers. And
thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah.
This has been Baconsale.
I'm excited that you guys are here tonight so that I don't have to sleep alone.
Yeah.
Man, I'm coming to your house.
Yeah, you should.
He doesn't wear pants.
I want to play a game.
It was a mistype. I actually meant to put Dracula from Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Yeah, you don't have to be the fastest. You just can't be the slowest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the black guy.
They realize,
I'm the best dad.
I don't think I said that. Actually, I didn't get a bone up on my blob.
Much like the difference between Dracula and vampires.
Vampires, absolutely.
Not all vampires are Draculas, Mom. They were under the world's largest ball of twine, weren't they?
Yeah, right north of
I
the
knew that ball of twine was haunted.
Whatever.
Children can be brought up in an environment where they accept things as normal that are so far beyond normal and so wrong. Like parents who raise their kids to like Twilight. You know, it's just
right. That's sick.
And so
Making out?
Making out. Mm-hmm. And
Family friendly.
I may have had a breakthrough, doctor.
You're covered by Kent Cares.
That's never going to catch on.
It's not a thing.
Because Kent Cares.
Got to let the Aquaman go. What are your basic drives? You know, eating, sleeping, family
Making out.
friendly. Yeah, if she wasn't so terrible, I probably would have watched the films. But I don't want to make out with her at all.
Wait, what was the racist comment?
You're like, it's not racist if it's a fact.
Women, am I right?
Were you ever kidnapped and or thrown in a tank of sharks as a child? Angels sitting on clouds, playing your harp, singing praises forever. That sounds terrible.
I'd rather be in hell eating Carl's Jr. on my throne.
Raise your killers young before they develop a conscience. And
Good advice for parents anywhere.